welcome to my video. This is going to be first a spoiler-free review, then spoilery thoughts on 2024's Alien Romulus. I'm going to start by telling you this was a movie that I loved most of. The movie is rated R, so will this video be? And before I get into the thoughts, I will be spoiling in the review. I'm not gonna spoil this movie in the review itself, but I will be spoiling the movies, leading up to it, just not including it. Before I do so, just gonna address the elephant in the room. Yes, I know my lip looks swollen, or is swollen. Allergic reaction. Yeah, just so you're not, constantly trying to figure out what's going on with that throughout the entire video. Before I spoil anything, I'm just going to say, this is a really strong entry in the franchise. You can watch it without having watched any of the others. Personally, I would argue you should at least have watched the first movie, because if you watch this entire movie and then you watch the first movie, you're gonna know every single, I would argue it is very much meant to be that way. It is set after the first movie. The characters do not know what happened in the first movie, but the audience, it features a lot of things that also happens in the first movie. And yeah, it can work without having watched the first movie, but if you try and then you watch the first movie, you're robbing yourself of a very good movie that, that movie will have nowhere near the same effect. I think that is the only thing that I really want to make sure to say without spoiling any of the other movies. So yes, let's see. Yes, before I get into my own thoughts, make sure you watch Jessie Gender's excellent video on it. Be aware she spoils some things, so, watch the movie first. But I'm going to try not to repeat the stuff she did an excellent job covering in her video. I think that is about... Right, yes. Do make sure you read there's some really great stuff in IMDb Trivia. And that might be about it for those. So there's a pretty decent time to just briefly... I am not going to... let's see. I'm going to tell you my ranking of every movie that features aliens other than this one now, and then at the end of the review I will update the list with this one. So, worst to best, every Alien franchise movie: AVP 1, Requiem, Covenant, Alien 3, Prometheus, and then the three that I really love: Resurrection, Alien 1, and Aliens. And, okay, so I'm trying to not talk too much about... getting into what some others have said, but I will just very briefly, so apparently a non-zero number of conservatives have said, oh, this movie isn't going to have Ellen Ripley, which, I mean, I would like that, direct sequel to Aliens that Neil Blomkamp was, had a concept for, sure, but I don't think this is a franchise that needs Ellen Ripley, as awesome as Sigourney Weaver is. They conservatives, at least one, frustrated that the movie is about human class inequality, and it's like, this franchise has always had themes of class warfare. It is brought up many, many, many times in the first two. It shows how bad, at least some, conservative media literacy is, that there are actually people claiming that this new movie is like the first time that the franchise has been progressive. The first in the series isn't exactly perfect. It features a woman screaming and scared to the point where she's incapable of helping for a good chunk of the movie. The black man is seemingly more sexually out of control than any of the white men, even when the white women turned him down. But beyond that, it makes it clear that one of the biggest threats to humanity is amoral corporations, or corporations for short. Let's see. Another of the most evil is, you know, a man, a bootlegger who's so devoid of personal individual thought and judgment, he's literally a robot. The fact that the sympathetic working class characters struggle to be paired fairly would suggest that they need a good union. It is pro-choice, literally one of the most memorable scenes, one of the ones that is the most etched into the memories of everyone who's watched it, is a forced birth, which is rendered absolutely horrific. And while the following doesn't have to be and shouldn't be, it currently is. The movie is vehemently anti-rape, and a huge chunk of it is about the terrifying consequences of a rape survivor being forced to have their rapist's child. Think about how different that first movie would have played out if they had discovered and aborted the chest burster. Every form of the xenomorph is carefully crafted to resemble genitalia, make us fear the rape. Meanwhile, conservatives are hard at work making sure that rapists have more rights than rape survivors. Now, let's see. Yeah, so before watching it, I had heard that this movie is not going to try to explain the xenomorph the way that Prometheus and Covenant did, but rather tell a story where the xenomorph is a major antagonist, and that is very much the case. And yeah, I really love to see it. It's the exact right choice for these movies. I can appreciate wanting to tell stories like Prometheus. I don't particularly think that they work as movies set within the greater Alien franchise. Maybe, in another medium, or maybe as movies that just aren't connected to the other Alien movies. I really do not think that we should know where the xenomorph comes from in one of these movies. It should always be a mystery. I'm way less bothered by, it's been like 20 years since I read the Alien vs. Predator comics. Or 15, whatever. It's been years. From what I recall, there's at least one of those that also explains some, and it bothers me much, much less in another medium. Let's see. So, yeah. I was wondering how this movie was going to handle the prerequisite android. So far, there's been at least one android character in every single one of these movies. In the first movie, he's a real bastard. And then there were 3 movies where the movie's android is sympathetic. Then Ridley Scott came back to make another 2 movies where, again, each film has at least one android that is just the worst. Keep in mind that the original is from 1979, Prometheus from 2012. That's 33 years. Long time to hold a grudge, considering how spectrum-coded all of them are. I really have to wonder, what did Ridley Scott experience with an autistic person that made him hate them so much for so long? Was it Exist? I bet it was Exist. That does it for most ableists. For sure, he has some really great values elsewhere, but I find it kind of hard to ignore this. And let's see, in the movies leading up to this one, it kind of feels like the Xenomorphs have just straight up read the script, less so in the special edition of Aliens. It's pretty bad in the original. Like, somehow they know exactly where to go and what to do in order to maximize the damage they do to the human characters. And yeah, I would say that this one does a good job of... There's some explanation as to why they do... I don't think not enough to take away the mystery. And other than that, yeah, no, they aren't just constantly doing whatever makes them the most harmful to the characters. And let's see, um, yeah, I feel like it's more compelling, when stuff like this, you know, yeah, goes against that. I prefer the way it is in The Thing, where clearly some of the time it's just going off instinct and reflexes, and actually does stuff that would not benefit it. And yeah, I would say this one does that. Every single Alien movie features at least one creature that we've never seen before, at least one that is deeply memorable for its body horror, and yeah, um, that there's I suppose I won't give away if this one also features a new one, but I will definitely say the body horror is truly amazing. Considering how many references the Evil Dead remake by the same writer-director has to the first two of the series, I was a little concerned this one would also just have, a lot of references. I don't think that it's too many in Evil Dead, but Evil Dead, the franchise, has always been a bit, there's some lighter tone. I think it works. I'm not, that's not a criticism of either franchise. I think it works perfectly well for both. But yeah, I was a little worried that this one would also have a lot of references, since I don't think that would work as well in this. I don't think it worked well in Prometheus and Alien Covenant. And, in general, it's a big problem with prequels, remakes, and late sequels today. And no, this one is much more restrained. Not as much as many would like. I appreciate that. I do agree. Jesse Gender. Okay, I'm just gonna briefly. She points out that there's it changes context and it puts it in a new light. But yeah, this is not like, for example, the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which, to be clear, I do love how left-leaning they are. I think they do some really interesting things, but I do wish that they weren't as point by point. There's too many similarities, in my opinion, to the original trilogy, and yeah, not anywhere near as much with this one. Though in some ways it is very similar to the first movie, but there's some important, significant differences. And let's see. Yeah, like the rest of the films in the main series, not counting the spin-offs, this one does deliver a genuinely interesting story, set within the universe of Alien. I really do appreciate that, there's a lot of continuity, especially in those first four films, and between Prometheus and Resurrection, but this, this franchise does try to tell different stories that are thematically consistent, and yeah, I really appreciate that it's not just the basic same thing. And yeah, I'm not sure that I would really necessarily say this one has an outright Ripley stand-in. There's maybe one or two characters where you could make an argument, but they don't feel, yeah. I would argue that it's not as much so as Prometheus, Covenant, and the AVP movies. And let's see, yeah, literally the only two movies in the Alien franchise to have something as cheesy as a young woman sexualized and then attacked by a xenomorph are Requiem and Covenant, and yeah, this one doesn't do it. I really appreciate that. I don't think that kind of thing belongs in these intelligent sci-fi horror movies that the Alien movies most of the time are. It's, put it in slasher movies, which, I do still have a soft spot for a number of slashers. And let's see. So far the only times Alien movies require at least one character to make a truly baffling decision in order for the plot to happen are the Versus spin-offs and when Ridley Scott is directing, and yeah, this movie does not have it. I appreciate that there are some frustrating decisions made by characters. I would argue they are always in character. You know, if you disagree, please put in the comments a decision in this movie that anyone makes that you think is truly out of character, and I will try to argue for why I believe it is in character. You know, it's a horror movie. You gotta have characters making bad decisions. It's extremely difficult to make a horror movie where no one makes, you know, at least one bad decision. It's just very difficult to get to make movies like this work without some bad decision making. Now, yeah, there are, let's see, yeah, I was, let's see, oh, never mind. Yeah, I think that pretty much, yeah, I think they did a fantastic job here with just making sure that, you know, similar to the Evil Dead remake, this one spends maybe the first 30 minutes or so establishing, you know, setting, situation, characters, you know, interpersonal relationships, stakes, and, you know, only after that does it start to get, like, really into the body horror. There's tension and suspense, you know, not every single scene, but even the very first bit of this movie for several minutes has tension and suspense. You know, but yeah, it doesn't get into the intense body horror until maybe 30 minutes in. And I appreciate, you know, some people would like them to get to it sooner. I think it works. I think it hits harder when you've grown to you know, when you're invested, you know. And I think that is something that works really well about several of the other films in this franchise. I certainly don't think that the first two would be anywhere near as effective if not for that. And certainly Resurrection also doesn't go completely, you know, yeah, completely out there before we know the characters and the basic situation. I've seen some people say that they didn't care about the characters, and I've already done a lot, too much, armchair psychology in this video. We're only 18.5 minutes in, so I will just say that I don't understand how you don't care about at least some of these characters. Like, I could see an argument for one or two of them for not really caring about them, or at least not liking them much. And I do appreciate that the characters are not the most interesting that we've ever seen. You know, people love to shit on Resurrection. Can we at least agree that movie has really memorable characters? Like, that's probably the one that some of the Colonial Marines are also quite engaging, you know. But this is a franchise where a lot of the characters, you know enough about them to get a sense of who they are and care about them. You know, that's something the first one does quite well. But yeah, the characters are not necessarily the most interesting. I think that it works for this one, that it doesn't go against that. And I do disagree with those who say that it has absolutely no new ideas, or, yeah, it doesn't have that many. And it does perhaps also, you know, some of the stuff you see here, I can appreciate, it's very inspired by some of the less popular movies in this franchise, and I think it worked, but I totally understand people who thought, just, what the fuck were they thinking? Um, yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason why I find it difficult to not care about these characters is they're trapped in this really bad situation. And there's a strong pro-union, kind of anti-capitalist, at the very least, anti-corporation message to this. Again, as with, a number of the other movies. And, yeah, I mean, basically, the major characters are pretty much just stuck on this mining colony, and they're trying desperately to get a better life, which, I mean, I don't understand how, somehow American conservatives are against that when it's like people they don't like. I mean, it's not the most white dude heavy movie I've ever seen, and thank fucking Christ. Do we really need that many more white dudes in the fucking Alien franchise? Like, have you watched the movies? I rewatched all 6 of them. I couldn't bring myself to rewatch the AVP movies. A couple of months back, like, let's be honest, a lot of white dudes in there. I just... It's pretty ridiculous to me that the moment that we here in the West start making movies that aren't constantly centered on white dudes worshiping the ground we walk on, no matter how mediocre, many of us are, suddenly it's like, oh, it's an invasion, we're being erased. Like, too many white conservatives think that minorities are just gonna, turn around, do to us what, our ancestors did to them, and what we still benefit from. Diversity is our strength. I really appreciate that there is more diversity here, and I think they did a good job also, actually using the fact that, I don't think it's terrible when, there is quote-unquote just diversity in a movie. I do prefer when they actually use it, but yeah, they do here. There's some things here that you really couldn't get without, minorities in these roles. I think that might be about what I feel like there's... Right, yeah, love how gritty, back to basics this is. This is the grittiest that this franchise has ever been. And again, like, it got a little too up its own ass the last 2, Prometheus and Covenant. And I don't know if we're going to get more. I know there's a show coming up. I do not know if they're going to make more movies. I suppose I don't want to say in the review itself if they could make a sequel to this one, but, it's not a spoiler to say, because I already said there's movies already out in this franchise that are set after this one. So yeah, hypothetically they could make more, and they could also make a third, finish the Ridley Scott Alien prequel trilogy that, he was intending to make, if they really hate us and really want to... Okay, I'm not going to say, torture us with a bad movie, because that's such an exaggeration, but I really don't think... I don't think it's beneficial for the franchise to keep... Like, just tell the story in another medium and make movies that are more, I'm not saying all of them have to be like this. I personally would fucking love a proper sequel to Resurrection. Like, I get a lot of people really hate that movie, and I'm not saying it's perfect. I already told you my ranking. I don't think it's as good as the first two, but it's fucking interesting. Like, if you tell me that you don't think there's anything interesting in that movie, I'm just not going to believe you. That's just not something you're going to be able to convince me of. Like, the whole cloning thing, just it's the first time that they really fully took advantage of that it's sci-fi, because basically, like, if we're being honest, the first couple of them could essentially have been like fantasy, and you wouldn't really have to, imagine that they're set in a fantastical realm. The xenomorph is a supernatural being instead of an alien. Instead of a corporation, it's a kingdom. Like, but then you get the cloning and what that does to someone. Just yeah. I think that is everything for the review itself. But yeah, I rate this 8 xenomorphs dragged out of the retirement home one more time out of 10. And the updated ranking, so yeah. Yeah. Worst to best: AVP 1, Requiem, Covenant, Alien 3, Prometheus, Romulus, Resurrection, Alien, and Aliens. Overall, I do think that Resurrection just has a tiny bit more, in part because it just has so goddamn much personality. Like, I don't think people appreciate enough how much just, like, that movie, you could tell that it's, directed by a Frenchman. Like, what, I'm not saying that the French are perfect. They're having a pretty significant problem with the far right, as sadly other Western countries, and they had problems before that, if we're being honest. I don't hate them for the silly reasons that American conservatives hate them. That's for fucking sure. Yeah, I'm not saying you're not allowed to hate them if you are American. I'm just saying, if you hate them because you think they're like cowards, like, they're not. That was just something that was said because what was his name? The general took credit for America, freeing France. And also, and I really do think that this is something that, at least post 9/11, American conservatives should be able to appreciate. French buildings were bombed. It was completely unnecessary. The Americans could have waited out the Germans, but they didn't feel like it, so they just destroyed the buildings that they were supposed to, like, that belong to the people that are supposed to be there to save. So yeah. Yeah, and France didn't go along with the Middle Eastern wars that America was really, really eager to fight, and they were right. And that's something that conservatives can't stand, when someone else is right about something and deep down they know it, because I refuse to believe that anybody looked at the evidence, or rather lack thereof, and said, oh yeah, definitely gotta Saddam's got weapons of mass destruction, and we should bomb countries that Osama might be in. Like, I'm glad that Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein are dead. They were monsters. I am not gonna say one fucking nice word about them, but that's not what America did to those countries. Was completely unnecessary. And just, yeah, the entire Middle Eastern war was incredibly badly handled from start to finish. I think that is it for the review itself. So let's... actually, tell you what. I really appreciate there's some really great stuff with... I already mentioned some, minority perspectives and such. One of the characters is... Yeah, I already mentioned, Android remains, spectrum coded. And yeah, this is perhaps the movie that has the most empathy for the android. I do think James Cameron did a quite good job also, but yeah, overall, I do think this one has it beat in that regard. And yeah, like, it just... I wouldn't quite say that outside of like Resurrection and perhaps that I will say the most, Prometheus and Covenant. Other than those, this is the most that an android has been an actual individual, a person, and yeah, honestly, this one might still be at least tied for Resurrection, but I do appreciate that there's more to them in those other movies as well compared to some of... yeah. Yeah, just like his name is Andy, and he reminded me so much of actual Aspies that I know personally. I don't really have contact with them anymore because life happens, but just it felt like talking to one of them again. Like, there's this, he's very protective, and he does care. He just shows it in a way that a lot of people perceive as him not caring. Yeah, there's some ableism against him, and he's often trying to, like, he has this idea that him telling corny jokes, like, corny jokes is the answer. He forgot the question, and yeah, just absolutely adorable. And yeah, the actor does a great job. All the actors here do really great. I'm glad to see Kaylee Spaney in something other than, again, amazing. She did amazing in Bad Times at the El Royale, but this is a meteor role, and yeah, love to see it. Also glad to see Isabella Merced, because I wasn't writing her off based on Madam Web, but it's, yeah, I've been hearing about her for years. Yeah, she does fantastic here. I really hope to see her in more. I think that is it for the review. So let's get into the spoiler section, thoughts, and I'm just going to make sure to note. So it is, let's see, 33. There we go. And yes, I did not write down every single thing in the movie in my notes, so I think I'm gonna do... I'm a little worried that I'm gonna start forgetting stuff that I didn't write down, so I think I'm going to go ahead and actually start... I realize this is gonna be awkward, unless you don't give two flying fucks about whether or not I do this chronologically as I usually do. I don't know. I might actually be the only person that cares. Drop me let me know in the comments if you give even half a shit about whether or not I go... Yeah, let's see. So what was the last thing I did write down? Let's see. Right, yes. So, yeah. The last thing I wrote down was when it's revealed that Andy's new, prime directive is that he has to do what's best for the company. So starting there, this thing of, the Xeno hunting them, and so they have to, change of plans, and they get the guns, the thing with the aim assist was pretty cool, and I appreciate the thing. I learned about it from video games and magazines, which was a legitimately funny, because the aim assist feels like it came out of a video game, and it also just is like, I feel like it's almost like a meta joke, because like a lot of what we know or think we know about the alien, the xenomorph, is it's from video games and like comics and such, so yeah. And yeah, in real life, like, some of what you might know about like guns and knives and shit, ways to start shit. Yeah, it's from like movies and video games and such. Which is, of course, a lot of those aren't actually accurate, but yeah. Yeah, and the thing about, oh no, you're not supposed to shoot them. I'm just hoping, they'll take a hint, and I guess Andy's a fan of I Am Alive, where, oh fuck me, nobody's gonna get that fucking, okay. Does it make it worse if I explain it? Okay, just for the benefit of all the people who have no fucking clue about that game. In that game, think of basically The Road if it was, novel or movie, the Viggo Mortensen movie, yeah, that as a video game. And yeah, sometimes your gun is empty and you have to basically just hope that they don't realize you can't shoot them as you force them to back up until they fall into a hole behind them. But yeah. Let's see, yeah, I'm definitely forgotten some stuff. Okay, so let's see, but yeah, I thought it was a legitimately cool idea, this thing of, because in the original Alien, they do say, the acid could burn through the hull, and it does happen in Resurrection, but yeah, here, all the acid blood that does end up eating through the hull, that was a whole new level of that. Yeah, I've maybe I'll remember later in the video, but I'll just jump ahead to, when they are, up against the wall, and there's all these xenomorphs, that they've been busy, and he's making these corny jokes again, and one of them's about gravity, and so she's like, oh, zero gravity, and it's so great because, yeah, it was set up very early in the movie, and at that time, I had no fucking clue that it was going to come back for such a scene this tense, and yeah, and violent. More xenomorphs are shot in like 2 or 3 minutes than in, I think, all the other movies combined. I suppose if you count the special edition of, well, on screen at least, yeah. Yeah. Let's see, then we, yeah, it's really clever, the thing of, because, yeah, it is true, you probably already know that, but just pointing out what a lot of, it is true what many of you have heard. Yeah, liquid in 0G does not, run and flow the way it does with gravity. It is these, yeah. And really cool when they're trying to get away from there, and oh, the countdown, because the gravity is going to start back up again. That was established earlier. It restarts. It doesn't just stay turned off, and that does also make a lot of sense. Like, essentially, like, what would be the purpose of leaving it off for forever? Like, I guess if you just shut down the thing entirely, but the moment that you power it up, yeah, like, you're gonna need gravity. What the fuck? Like, just, and let's see. I think they could, like, they could maybe turn, yeah, they do turn off the thing of, like, how it cycles off and on. It's basic IT, but the fact that it's set to automatically do that makes a ton of sense. And let's see, what was the other thing? Fuck. Yeah, really tense when they have to make it past all the blood in time for the, before the gravity comes back on, and just barely make it. And her using the gunfire to propel herself was quite clever. I gotta say, every single time it looked like Andy would die, it really got to me. I like the detail that his name does come from, like, he's I think they said ND or NND, and that becomes Andy. Fuck. Okay, so yeah, I've definitely forgotten shit. God damn it. Yeah, let's see, we have the I forget what they called it, but let's just go with the compound. Yeah, they had a thing that could mutate if injected, and we saw what it did to the rat. But Kay didn't see that. She just hears, this might save your life, and she's thinking about the baby. In addition to herself, she wants the baby to survive, and she wants to be the yeah, she wants the baby to grow up with a biological mother. There's not something wrong with adoptive, but that was also, I really loved how much this, like, there is some, like, traditional family unit. There's the two cousins, but one of the cousins is like, okay, can you just okay, fuck him, he's an asshole, but the the better relationship is the siblings, who are basically found family. And I suppose that is honestly quite literal, because Andy was literally found, a discarded android. What was the other thing that I wanted to... Yeah, Jessie Gender had some great, really fantastic analysis, as usual, about Andy in her video. Make sure you watch that after this. Right, yeah. So, yeah, the compound, it's explained, and we see what it did to the rat, and, and yeah, Kay injects herself with it to save her and the baby, and then not long after, the baby is born, and I feel like, I don't know if this was written after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, but certainly, it was in the air. The Republicans have been making it clear for decades that that's what they wanted to do, sadly. I don't mean to make light of it. I'm not laughing at it happening. I'm laughing at its exasperation. It's not, I don't find it funny. Yeah, it really hits very different than if it had come out, before the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We do very much have a situation where, her bodily autonomy, her control over the pregnancy and birth are taken from her, and she ends up being disgusted by what she gave birth to, which is something that happens in real life to some women who are forced to carry their rapist's baby to term. And I think that might... Yeah, fucking love the thing that comes out of it. I heard some people say, oh, reminded me too much of, like, the Engineers. I mean, I guess I can sort of see what you mean, but I really don't think... Like, I have very little... I don't think the Engineers were ever that... I don't want to see them in movies. I want them to be this opaque kind of bit of background, in the original Alien, but I never found them to be that compelling. Even after, I was like, okay, I'll go with it. Scott, give me what you got. What do you think is so? What do you badly want to put on screen with the engineers? And I really didn't think it was interesting. I loved this. Like, I don't know what to call it, because Resurrection already called Newborn. Let's go with hybrid. Xeno-human hybrid. I really thought they did a great job. Like, similar to the Newborn. There's some human traits and some very Xeno traits. It didn't feel like just like a ripoff of the Newborn. But yeah, I thought they did a great job making it feel inhuman while still having some human. It reminded me somewhat of like The Thing, like this thing of, okay, that looks human, but there's just something terribly wrong. That a human body is not supposed to be able to do that kind of thing. I thought they did a great job with that. And yeah, its death also did somewhat remind me of the Newborn, but there was just enough, And I feel like it could probably have survived what happened to it. So I guess, in 45 years' time, we'll get a sequel to this movie and, find out that Weyland-Yutani picked up this thing that was... I do think that was a really cool... That was a great way to get the alien in, the xenomorph in there, and also just, because I will say I never really thought about, what if... I kind of just assumed it was gonna be going through space for forever, which, some might say is worse than just dying. Like, death doesn't take that long. In a lot of these movies at least, but to just be floating through space. But yeah, I do believe that it could have survived for as long as, and they, so if I understand correctly, the reason they're face huggers in this movie is because the DNA from the adult, the drone, is how they got... Yeah, it's a little iffy, but I mean, I think it gave us a really great movie. It's like with Resurrection. Like, does it make any sense that the Queen would come with if they cloned Ripley 8 times? Like, not really. Like, the idea that the alien is just part of your DNA like that, they really badly wanted a sequel, and one with Ripley and the Queen back and all this, I don't think it's as desperate as the explanation for the face hugger in the third movie. I feel like there's at least something. Yeah, I thought the ticking clock in the last maybe third of the movie or so, fantastic job. Early on, of a long time ticking clock is set up, and then later it gets to be much less time. I would maybe argue that I don't think we needed 2 separate times where Kay screaming for help leads someone to I think just do it once, they're near the end. I think it worked that they realized she was still alive and they got her out of there. And I do appreciate they needed something for the other time. I don't know. It just felt slightly repetitive. But yeah, I do think that the hybrid was a really cool, like I mentioned in the review, each one of these movies introduces at least one brand new, and yeah, it's one of my favorites. I think it's really great, and I do really appreciate them not trying to force a queen in here. I do think that, like, because that's the thing, the first one doesn't have a queen, and in fact, if you watch, I want to say it's called the special edition, supposedly the xenomorph actually turns human beings into eggs rather than there being a queen. But, you know, the second one introduces it, and it's awesome. And then for 3 and 4, they feel the need to bring it back. Even though, like, for 4, at least, it, you know, there were eggs that came out of it. But for 3, like, okay, it works for the thing of the abortion metaphor. You know, it's not just, you know, yeah, it's an... We've already seen someone be forced to give birth to a xenomorph. This is the first time we're seeing it with a queen. I just overall don't think that it... Yeah. I really appreciate that they're trying to just not go back to that well yet again. I think that might be about... Yeah. Really loved when the xenomorph emerges, you know, the thing it yeah, comes out of. I thought they did a great job with the build up to that, and that's something. There's too many horror movies, you know. I think they were good at it in like the 80s. I haven't seen enough from the 70s, but obviously the original Alien does a great job in the original Halloween. But yeah, 80s, a lot of really great build up to the big things, and then, you know, some of the horror movies from like the 2000s, at least American ones, just it seemed like they just didn't understand what build up really was, and they would just dump shit. Like, you know, 2000s, also some 2010s. I'm sorry, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is easily one of the worst of that entire franchise. And that's a franchise that largely is quite solid. Like, 5 is kind of weird. Not like J.D. Vance weird, but still pretty weird. The 6th one is a failed comedy. The remake is probably might be the worst of those, you know, but yeah, the you know, yeah, 1 through 4 and also 7 are, you know, they all have something to really love about them. I think that might be what there is. Yeah, so apologies again for the awkwardness, but we're gonna go to the very start. Yeah, love the logos, you know, right there, right from the start. They do a really great job setting a tone, and it also, yeah, was it all 4 of the original? Yeah, I forget about the logos, but certainly it's not the first time that the, you know, 20th century, although now it's, you know, not Fox but Studios, but yeah, that logo, you know, they do the green thing and the sound work over it. Right, love the use of silence. That sometimes, you know, yeah, space in this is truly silent. But yeah, at the start we see them, you know, capture the target and, you know, open the thing, and we see, you know, oh yeah, that's definitely the xenomorph. And I love how that kind of hits different. If you've never watched okay, if they you know, removed a rock on Mars and you emerged, and you're like, you know, I you know, never seen an alien movie, yeah, that would probably hit different. For, you know, yeah, for most of us, it's like, oh, that's definitely the adult xenomorph in there, you know. But yeah, very clever that they were, you know, they looked for it and they actually found it, and yeah, just because that is the, you know, in the first movie, it is clear that the now that I think about it, or is it just a theory? I feel like I've heard somewhere that the ship was, yeah, the company figured there was something like the xenomorph out there. Maybe they didn't know exactly what it was, and that's part of why the ship went to the distress signal, something like that. Now, yeah, we see the waking up thing and this, message that, like, the words express concern, but the tone is kind of harsh and Jesse points out in her excellent video, yeah, it's not that they're concerned about their health, it's just they want the workers to be able to do the work, and yeah, that is sadly very true of capitalism. Let's see. So, I'm Danish. Our movies tend to be subtitled in Danish, in theaters, at least. I think even the movies in Danish, there's a thing about, like, it's rare for a Danish person to watch something that doesn't have subtitles, unless you buy, like, a DVD that just comes without subtitles or something. But for a long time, it was always... Anyway, several of the jokes, they had to, I don't know if this guy came up with any of them on his own, or they. I actually didn't catch the name. If the subtitler had to come up with their own or looked up or what, but yeah, a bunch of the jokes, the dad jokes, yeah, they just they're because they're verbal jokes, and some of these words are very, very different. Several of them I can't really translate directly back without just it, yeah. But one that did, he says, "I'm on a seafood diet. I see food, I eat it." That was translated into, "I'm on a juice diet. I was pressured into it," which, yeah, that is pretty funny, and that works in both languages. Let's see. Yeah, we see the union, the attempt to unionize outside. And I appreciate the detail that Rain doesn't even consider, like, trying. She's basically given up on the idea that that's ever gonna work. It's not that she doesn't want it to happen. And she goes up. She's like, "Can I please leave?" Like, imagine, God damn it. They're not even allowed. They can't even just leave. She met her quota. Like, it's like if you had to go to your boss and beg at quitting time every day, like, "May I please go, please, sir, may I have just a tiny bit of fucking leisure time," and that's what corporations want. They don't really, not all of them, not every single one of them, but a lot of them, probably the majority, want to have complete control over the worker. And yeah, she points out, she met her quota, and we get the detail about, both of her parents died. So yeah, she's literally, she's like a teenager working to get by. There's no, like, well, I mean, at your age, we'll make sure to take care of you. There's, this is part of what taxpayer money pay for. But no, it's just, if you don't work. Let's see. And yeah, I appreciate that some of what the union says does sound like outright communist stuff. I appreciate that they didn't feel the need to, like, tone it down too much to be like some kind of centrist bullshit, because, like, I appreciate not everybody wants to go full communist, and at this point I'd just like to point out yes, there have been terrible dictatorships that at least claimed to be communist, but the fact that communism was at least invoked and perhaps even sometimes attempted, that's not what was bad about them. It was the dictatorship part. A capitalist dictatorship is not better than a communist one. But yeah, I appreciate not everybody wants full communism, but you're going to have to go closer to communism if you want to solve the problems of capitalism. And I appreciate that this movie acknowledges that. And yeah, we're told, the quotas were just, if you'd have gotten here just a few seconds earlier, the quotas were raised. And it's like, but she already, like, again, it's just, it's sick. She did what was agreed to, and I do appreciate that. There's other women. She's basically just like a bureaucrat. She's not. She doesn't seem evil, But yeah, it's like, but this was not our deal. The company has altered the deal. Pray they do not alter it any further. And yeah, it's been doubled. And she says, you're gonna have to be here for another 5 or 6 years. And I love that with the audio, like there's a little bit of distortion, like, and you also see Rain's face, and I think they do a thing with the camera also, and it's like almost overpowering. It's like, no, this is like this is the kind of thing that the cinematic, kind of thing they do if someone like realizes, that someone they love has been kidnapped or something. It's a, yeah, and yeah, it feels like she'll never get out. I mean, are we supposed to believe that they're not going to raise the quotas at all in the next 5 or 6 years? Come on. And yeah, it was like, well, we lost some workers. Some bad stuff happened, and it's like the company could probably have, if they had taken better care of the workers, if they'd been more, yeah, careful, cautious around these, dangerous, yeah, that does, a lot of the time, that kind of thing doesn't have to happen. And certainly here on Earth, we do see that a lot. Corporations just not taking that kind of stuff seriously. Not, yeah. Let's see. But yeah, because some workers were lost, other workers have to suffer. And, again, like, that's almost definitely not the only solution, but it's what the company deems the most efficient solution. So it's what's gonna fucking happen, Sucks to be born into, corporate dictatorship. Let's see. Right, and I really appreciate the that we get an African American android, who's ASD, and yeah, the movie has so much empathy for him. That's, again, like, it's a big problem. There's a lot of people who don't have empathy for African Americans and, people with various disabilities. Let's see. And that's, again, science fiction, there's going to be people who watch this and are like, poor Andy, and they might not right away realize that they're empathizing with an African American, they're empathizing with someone who's on the spectrum, but, it can help get them there. Maybe next time they see an African American, even if they are currently still racist, it might remind them of Andy. Same thing for someone on the spectrum. Let's see. Yeah, and, he's been hurt, and he comes back, and we get more dad jokes, and we get the thing with, used to love that joke when I was 12, and it is this thing of, like, that's not just a spectrum thing, that is a family member thing. Some people just really struggle to accept when their sibling or, offspring is growing up, is no longer, yeah. Yeah, and Bjorn makes it clear that, they just need Andy, and he's fine with them just borrowing Andy off Rain. I wouldn't have hated if Bjorn eventually, like, properly apologized to Andy. Yeah, as far as I recall, he doesn't at any point in the movie. I do really appreciate that. Fuck all these names. His cousin does apologize. It's not that everybody thinks that it's just no big deal. That he's making all these bigoted remarks. Yeah, and we get the thing about, the seeing the sun, and you have this thing of, like, I've seen it many times. in my dreams. Like, you know, again, imagine never seeing the sun. You know, just yeah. And you know, Andy, just so utterly adorable. You know, what was it, like something like I'm glad I'm seeing it with you, or I look forward to seeing it with something like that. Fuck, what was the other thing? Maybe I'll remember later. Yeah, and we see, you know, it's a base, it's not a ship. And yeah, we're told, you know, 36 hours, the ticking clock. And yeah, you know, you can appreciate, I mean, we'll be in and out in 30 minutes. You know, what's the, you know, I guess not a very generous lover, but maybe they're in a hurry. But yeah, I really appreciate that Rain and Andy, you know, are affectionate towards one another. The fact that he is an android and on the spectrum does not change her love for him, her connection to him. And that is something, you know, that it's still disturbing to me how many people don't seem to understand that. But yeah, as someone who's been close to, you know, people with disability and yeah, people that have been dehumanized in a lot of language and a lot of laws and such, yeah, you can form a close relationship with them, and they can love you back, even if, you know, when some people on the spectrum show it in a different way. Let's see. Yeah, we you know, we get the 0G, and it's much better than Event Horizon, which, and not just because of how terrible those special effects were, even back when, like, I watched that movie not long after it came out, not many years after it came out, and even at the time we were like, this is not convincing effects. I do not know. I've never encountered someone who thought that CGI in the 90s didn't overreach and try to do things that they couldn't make look good. Right, and we see Mother starting up, and I appreciate. I don't think we're ever told what it's short for, but it does appear to be like short abbreviation, acronym. You know, abbrev, and I don't know. It just tickles me. Yeah, that joke doesn't work as well when it's said as opposed to written, but it tickles me that you can abbreviate the word abbreviate. But yeah, the you know, on the base it is Mother 9000, but at the start of the movie, when they, you know, grab the Xeno shell, we see that they do in fact have a Mother over 9000. And yeah, they find the cryo thing, but there's for 3 years, not 9. And yeah, that is a clever. I think they did a good job adding obstacles without it feeling like any of them came out of nowhere throughout the movie. Yeah, and we learn that the reason Bjorn is so terrible to Andy is because his mother died because of a different android. And yeah, that, you know, bigotry summarized, you know, that it's like, think about how ridiculous it is to judge one individual based on another individual's actions just because they share an identity. You know, it doesn't actually make any rational, logical sense, but it's bigotry, brain rot. You know, it stops you from thinking rationally. You know, your brain, like, it's basically the lizard brain takes over, and it's just like, that's a dangerous, you know, group or individual or object. Smash it, get rid of it. You know, which is why it's so useful for conservative politicians to appeal to. It keeps them from having to try to solve actual problems. The moment that we learned that Kay was pregnant, like, immediately alarm bells going off, like, oh, fuck me, no, there's no way that baby is gonna be, like, I'm sure it exists out there. I'm sure there is at least one horror movie where a pregnant lady gives birth and nothing at all is wrong with the baby, but there's a lot of horror movies where if there's a pregnant woman, something fucked up is going to happen to that baby. And yeah, the thing about, I want my baby to see the sun, or something like that. And the thing of, never see you again because Andy is not going with them to Ivagra. That's, oh, fuck. And the thing of, if it's what's best for Rain is what's best for me. And yeah, we learned they actually don't have, there's no good choice in this situation. Whether he goes with or stays, it's bad. Yeah, and we have the line about, with Bjorn, there's that thing about, I forget the exact words, but something about you can't care because you're not a real person, or something like that, Right, that was also, I wanted to underline, like, the decision to sacrifice some people in order to save others. A human being could have made that decision, but it's convenient to think, oh, if only it had been a human, they would never have, and I realize in Hollywood movies, they always somehow find a way to save everyone, but that's just not reality. There are times in the real world, like this, I've thankfully never myself had to make a decision like that, but you do sometimes hear about, like people who work in, certain fields may have to make a decision that means, I guess sort of like a trolley problem kind of thing. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I love the thing about, Bjorn seems like he's sort of threatening Andy. And for like a second or two, it looks like Andy is like, really angry with him and gonna do something. And Bjorn's like, no, I was just joking, which is, it's a little funny. It's a little funny to see this bigot suddenly, become a complete coward in the face of, because, like, it obviously wouldn't be quite right for Andy to actually attack him, which turns out he wasn't. But yeah, I if you provoke someone, especially someone innocent, for long enough, you're going to have to expect some kind of reaction. But no, it turns out, he was saving him from falling into the hole, and he just didn't say, like, basically, you can almost see his android brain, like, calculating, like thinking, if I tell him don't walk backwards, he might do it. Maybe out of spite, or maybe just, it's that thing of, like, don't think about elephants, But yeah, despite how shitty Bjorn is to him, Andy still protects him. Like, he could have just let Bjorn fall and be like, oh no, I didn't see that hole, or something. And yeah, very tense when the cryo doors close and are locked. And yeah, it makes sense that he can't open it without, science officer authorization. And the camera pulls out and you see the facehugger on the monitor, which again, just, I'm sure that hits different if you aren't super familiar with it. If this somehow is the first time you come into contact with, because all it tells you is that thing, whatever it is in that room. You don't know exactly what it can do. Seeing facehuggers underwater was also quite good. It's, I don't think we've seen that before. We've seen Xenos in water, but drones in water, but yeah. Let's see. yeah, and yeah, they realize that Rook's body has clearance. And yeah, the X-ray device is quite good. I don't really have anything to add. Ah, fuck. I forget if it was Jesse or someone else, but others have already pointed out, yeah, Ian Holm, R.I.P. being CGI resurrected like that. I'm not a fan. I really hope that we just get to a point where Hollywood just doesn't do this. I don't know if it's going to take like an actual law, but it's just I just recast these roles. Find someone who looks like. I mean, Halloween Kills has they found someone who looks a lot like what Donald Pleasance looked like in 1978. Just do that, do maybe some facial prosthetics or something. I mean, okay, yeah, nobody wants a repeat of Watchmen, the movie's Nixon, but yes, actually, I would prefer that to resurrecting dead actors. But there are some details about it on the IMDb trivia that I do think help with context for the resurrection. And yeah, they talk about Andy after the new chip thing is put into him, didn't even require a vaccine shot. I'm joking, obviously. It's ridiculous to think that there's chips and vaccines. Fuck. Anyway, yes, they say oh he's rebooting, and I forget, did they actually say? Yeah, they said like a couple of minutes, so I guess 120 seconds. So I guess he really is a Cyberdyne model. That is what we were told on Sarah Connor Chronicles. And yeah, we get some more of the infamous mouth rape, and yeah, great tension and suspense as I really loved when the facehuggers when they get out the fucking door. That was so crude. First I think first one of them gets through, and then the others like smash through the glass. We've seen like they're obviously spider-like, they always have been, but a swarm of facehuggers looking like a swarm of spiders. Is that called a swarm? Whatever. Super creepy, really nicely done. And yeah, we see the remains of the xenomorph. Get a summary of the original alien. Very nicely done. And they do manage to get the facehugger off with the freezing. That was a clever bit. And yeah, just so when Andy says, "I'm sorry, I'm a burden to you," I'll finally be able to help you. I'm not a kid anymore. It's heartbreaking. And yeah, the thing about Bjorn thinks that Andy is going to kill Kay, or no, not Kay. Fuck. Not Kay, but I can't remember all the names. I'm sorry. I mean no disrespect, but yeah, and yeah, he has like, is Andy gonna do that? And Rain's like, I don't know. It's and yeah, the chest bursting with the X-ray was really great. And yeah, cool explosion, and the face huggers in the shaft. And yeah, 47 minutes left until the collision. And yeah, they're now on the other side of the station, and they have to get all the way there. And right, it was also pretty cool with the thing of Romulus and Remus. And yeah, we're told he now has a fourth directive, and it's hidden until he tries arresting. And I guess that's as much as I can say. I think you get the reference. If I say more, it'll be a spoiler for a movie that should not be spoiled. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I do think this is the first time we've been told, at least in a movie, yeah, the facehuggers, they can't see, and they don't appear to have eyes, but they hear sound and they can, they can perceive heat signatures. So you can be invisible if the heat signature is the same. Yeah, very clever. And I've seen some say that it's like A Quiet Place. I mean, the director also did Don't Breathe. I don't think he did anything on any Quiet Place movie, or are they making a show? I forget. I don't know. It maybe it is. I haven't watched any Quiet Place. Every single location I've ever seen has been quite loud, and just packed with monsters. But yeah, that's a joke. I don't know. Sometimes people don't seem to get when I'm trying to make a joke. You don't have to find it funny, but sometimes I don't understand how some people can't tell that I'm kidding. Anyway, but yeah, haven't watched Quiet Place, haven't watched Don't Breathe, so I don't know which. I get where they're coming from. I just wonder if it's not Don't Breathe. And yeah, the hanging body, really creepy, and the adult xenomorph, very cool when when Bjorn uses the electricity to shock it, and the acid blood on him, and his fingers are melting. It's just the whole, yeah. And yeah, love the tension and suspense of the drone emerging. Let's see, and yeah, Andy closes the door almost on the guy, and he's like, I mean, I calculated it correctly. Would you not agree? And yeah, there's a Xeno right above K, and that was very much like the Queen in Aliens. I know, I'm not calling out every single reference, just some. And yeah, super creepy when she's at the door and the drone is behind, let's see, and yeah, and he says, the door will be open for too long, the xenomorph will get through, that's what it's planning on. And so Andy lets Kay be attacked, seemingly killed, similar to the other android. And I do appreciate, Rain, like, she actually slaps him, and it is one of those things where, like, this is gonna hurt you more than it's gonna hurt me, because he's like metal face. It's gonna hurt her hand anyway. But yeah, you would not have guessed from earlier in the movie that she would ever slap him. And yeah, I am in favor of media depictions of, I forget if it's called female rage or feminine rage, but yeah, women should be allowed to express their anger and frustration. And that is everything that I had written down. Because, it's 100% fair of her. She's not being unreasonable. Someone just died because of his decision there. There is some, I'm just gonna real quick see if there's anything interesting in the, oh fuck, there's a bunch. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the, okay, yeah, so the IMDb frequently asked questions, yeah, you know what, I'll just say, yeah, it's worth reading. It's not really, I don't really have anything to add to it, and I'm just gonna skim the trivia spoilers. I did mean to, let's see, I meant to read them after watching the movie before hitting record. I was so excited to record this video, so I completely, yeah. But there's not really anything. thing. Yeah, the I think. Oh wow. Okay, so that actually is, yeah, okay, so, yeah. In order to get a truly shocked reaction out of Isabel Merced as the xenomorph lands over Kay, director Fede Alvarez decided to surprise the actress with a bucket of cold water. So that is a real, it's like how in the original Lambert didn't know, fuck, Veronica Cartwright playing Lambert didn't know she was going to be sprayed with blood like that, you know, so it's a genuine reaction. Let's see. I think the um, the I think that might be the um. Oh yeah, both rook and bishop are named after chess pieces. That is because yeah, they're tools. They're not people to the company corporation. I think I might have the. I'm trying to not just have dead air, even as I'm reading stuff that I'm not reading aloud. You know, the next time I want a hug, if I were, you know, I just, I'll have to specify not from a face hugger. And the, think that, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff in the IMDb trivia. And I do think I didn't mind that Rook is the same model as Ash. It's just the fact that they resurrected, you know, digitally resurrected the actor. I definitely do think that it works. The this element that they keep using the same model, and there's some clear similarities between Rook and Ash. Oh, Ridley Scott was the one who said that it should be Ian Holm or his likeness. And I do agree that it makes a ton of sense. I think that might be about. Oh, huh. A comment on a Reddit thread by Fede Alvarez confirms Bjorn is the father of Kay's child, confirmed within the film to be Tyler and her cousin once removed. Yeah, you know, that sometimes if there's not a lot of, what's the word? Not a lot of people in one area, sometimes incest. And yeah, you know, she did say some asshole. She didn't say she didn't know which asshole. We just kind of assumed, oh, she's had casual sex with multiple partners, which there's not anything wrong about. Like, you know, ideally, you know, if you don't want to end up pregnant, you should use protection of some kind, but there's not anything inherently wrong with casual sex, regardless of your gender or sex. But no, she didn't say, I'm not sure, but it must be some asshole. She said some asshole. Yeah, that's a neat little, yeah. Let's see. I think that might be. Right, and I like the detail that it was the reason that there we go. The reason that Andy makes all these dad jokes is that was his father, Rain's biological father, his adoptive father, programmed him to because they are very much dad jokes. Yeah, that's the end of the video. Let me know what is your favorite Alien franchise movie or other piece of media, and why. Are you looking forward to me eventually getting around to playing Alien Isolation? Because I am. If you like this video, please thumbs up, subscribe, hit that little bell. If the end screen works, then there should be a link to my main channel page. Want to show more links to stuff like relevant playlists? That's just a video for you to watch on the screen right about now. And yeah, I'm hoping to get back to doing a weekly vlog about a movie. It's, again, just a need, my back and knees need to improve. I am getting physical therapy treatments and they are helping, but it is taking time. Right now it's just the movies I can watch in the cinema where it works. I do not know why my I did get a specific chair that helps with my back. Right now, it used to work really well. Right now, my back is just not having it. But it's work in progress. Let's see. But yeah, I am currently doing a vlog per week about an episode of The Bear. And, I'm early season 3. I think it was episode 2 of season 3 that I did earlier this week. I'm also doing a weekly vlog on another show, which right now is Young Jedi Adventures. I'm almost completely done with, the episodes that are out, by now. Yeah. As soon as a current Star Wars show hits Disney Plus, I'm going to do that. Same for MCU. We're getting, let's see, is it 2 or 3 weeks we're getting Agatha All Along, which I can hardly wait for. And yeah. If you want more videos like this, you're in luck. You can check out my back catalog as well as catch whatever video I do next week. I hope you enjoyed watching, as I enjoyed watching and recording. Hopefully catch you next time. And yeah, I'm gonna hopefully be able to do movies at home in the not too distant future. I don't know, maybe, fuck, I'm trying to think of a good reference to end the video on, and everything's sounding wrong to me. I would not blame any woman who watches this movie if they think twice about having a baby.